Chrystal Rimmer's works for Materiality were sourced from her residency with Sail Britain, sailing the remote Western Isles of Scotland from Oban to Ardrossan. Collaborating with academics, she studied the impact of plastic waste on the ocean and its foreshore, charting the remote islands and lochs. I asked her about her time on the residency and what works were produced from this experience.
So there was 10 of us, and only 2 of the people on the boat actually knew how to sail, which was the skipper and the first hand. And the idea is you bring your own research project to the residency, but you also learn how to sail. And so you're in that intimate environment, you're collaborating with other academics as well.
And you were quite a heady crowd. You had other PhD students in chemistry and things such as that.
Yeah, so biologist, geologist, an actor, a nature photographer, an architect, and another artist, so and a few others. So it was a really great mix.
And there's this beautiful synergy with Joyce's work up there, but also your aluminium seaweed. And yeah, I guess my question is about the casting process of aluminium. How did that become a focal point of your practice, and how do these works come about?
Yeah, so while I was in the Netherlands studying plastic, I stayed at a residency called MATERIALITY, and they had a foundry at their residency. And originally I was just going to stick with my body of work in plastic, and they convinced me to start casting in lost wax and using the foundry. And I said only if I could work in waste materials, so recycled aluminium and post-consumer waste, and they said yes. So I learnt how to do that there, and then while I was on the boat, I was thinking about the way that microplastics affect shoreline fauna and flora. And on the Isle of Arran, these casts are taken on the west coast of Scotland. And I was really interested in the bladderwrack and how it had formed these mollusks on the surface area, but they also were attractants for microplastic as well. So they became these very beautiful, very toxic kind of forms. And then coming back to Australia and coming back to Sydney, I had a studio mate that also had a little foundry set up, and so we were able to do it on our own. So we didn't have to rely on another casting operator to do so.
That meant you could break the rules a little bit. Was there any particular things you got up to in the casting process that is worth mentioning?
Yes, so traditionally foundries don't use recycled alloys often because they can't control what they intake. So we, for example, can use cans and post-consumer eyewear frames as well, which is really, really nice.
And there's this really lovely titling that you've done of your work. We've got this piece here, Oysters Dream of Kelp Forests, but another one called Fireball. And you know, a good title is always like a poetic kind of part of a work. And how did those names come about? What do you think they add to the reading of the work?
Yeah, so when I was on my residency, I was also interested in speculative fabulation or speculative narratives, which is basically like fable making. And one thing that happened while I was over there was we were in a seal colony, so we'd parked up in a seal colony overnight, and we'd had a campfire, and it was beautiful. And then all of a sudden a fireball or a flare went over the night sky, and we didn't know what it was. We heard the sonic boom of it entering the atmosphere, and it was this beautiful, I guess, scene of nature coming to life. And then a few days later, we were trying to research what it was, because of course you don't have reception and you can't contact anyone to know what the item was. And in that time, Elon Musk had decided it was one of his cars entering back into Earth. And I was really interested in the way that his narrative kind of, I guess, takes over from many others that are actually going on in that scenario. So who gets to control the narrative of the way you experience life on a personal level and a society? So this artwork was named after that, because it has this beautiful synergy of I guess,
yeah, it looks like a
space
combusting sort of piece.
Absolutely.
Now, there's a really cool story about these tiny little microplastic bits So I'll lift one up.
Yes, of course. You can pass it around, actually.
Pass it around if you'd like. Please tell the story of that, because I found that fascinating.
So these are called plastiglomerates, which are a term from the Anthropocene, which is when microplastic collects on shore and then somebody comes to the shoreline and lights a fire, the plastic molecules are attracted to each other and actually bond and form with sand and with rock, and then they are also taken out and back into shore as well, so they're ground down and then formulated back into...
They become almost gemstones.
Yes.
Like there's a real jewel beauty to them. Yeah.
Absolutely. So they're formed in nature, but they are a cause or a causation of human action, but twice. So from the production of plastic, but also this ignition of fire, and then nature has a way of reforming it in itself. So they have all this beautiful poetry and meaning already imbued in their form. So it's like I don't have to do anything for them to be important and gorgeous.
And the cuttlefish, that was also a found piece while on the residency?
Yes, absolutely. And so this piece is, I guess, my enaction of a plastiglomerate. It's almost like a plastic mollusk. And this work is called timekeeping. So it's all about the way that particular materiality carries and holds time. So yes.
Thank you, Chrystal.
Thank you.